We are ready for our next talk. So you kind of got a preview of all the building blocks that we think are needed or we need to, in a way, perfect. But that leaves still a lot of room open for what we think we can do with the world of streaming money. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Miao, who's going to talk about what is upcoming in the Superfluid Protocol. So welcome to stage, and feel free to get started whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Kartik. Now to start, let me share the screen. Yeah, thanks everyone to join our first Superfluid Reactor Summit. So I'm Miao. On my GitHub, it's Wolf, and I'm CTO and co-founder of Superfluid Protocol, Superfluid Finance. So today I'm going to talk about what's next to the Superfluid Protocol. Right. So maybe let's first look at Superfluid in rearview mirror. So how it was started. So exactly 440 days ago, probably 441 now after a few hours, we deployed to Polygon. That was a transaction. And we had 2 packages for builders to start with. And deployed then also to XDAI. Both of network I changed the name, if you remember. It was called Matic, and now it's called Polygon, and it was XDAI, now it's called Gnosis Chain. Right, so that's how we got started. So how is it today? Let's look. Now we have vibrant development activities in the monorepo. So we have a lot of forks on 27, we have a lot of stars, and we have quite consistent commits to our dev branch. So, and our smart contracts project is also evolving. So we have just added the access control list to our CFA, constant flow agreement. And we also switched to hardhat for functional testing. We also integrated with Foundry for additional fuzzing testing. We recently, actually yesterday, also introduced HotFuzz, a new test framework for Superfluid applications. That means your super apps also. So you can now use something called HotFuzz, which uses Echidna from 12 bits for even more sophisticated fuzzing testing, right? So now we have more than 2 packages. We have new and better packages, right? JS SDK is being deprecated. You should really switch to SDK-Core. And we have also a Redux flavor of the SDK. We now put all the network support on SubGraph. We have a quite good support there, and HotFuzz recently, and we also have something called a spec Haskell. I'll talk about that later. Now we have also many more examples, right? So there's even an archive folder now because there's just too many, which is good. There are more docs. So if you haven't visited our docs, go to docs.superfluid.finance. You'll see the protocol overview, developer section, things about Sentinel, and all the peripheral resources you could find. And we also have continued contributions from our community, right? So here are the badges for our contributors. Some of them actually joined even our team full-time. We're always committed to contributing back to the community, right? So we have pull requests to the truffle suite, for example. We have pull requests to the truffle plugin verify. We have issue reports and technical feedback to TheGraph. And we have also pull requests to Echidna, for example. Many more, actually. And we adhere to the open collaboration and free and open source philosophy. So that's our part of our way of working. As a result, we have continued usage from builders. So now, if according to GitHub, we have 298, almost 300 repository, depending on our Ethereum contracts projects. And there's also continued download from our NPM of our NPM packages from NPM.js. And also, we are live on many more chains now, right? So we're just recently launched on Avalanche. A while ago, we also launched on Layer 2s. Arbitrum, Optimism, more to come. Also, we have cumulative flows going up. So that's so far a figure that I can share. So what's coming next to Superfluid? More networks, of course. So well, first, in order to do that, we're going to enable minimum deposit. So that's only for networks with high fees. We're talking about things like Ethereum mainnet, and some of the layer 2s also have relatively high fees compared to Polygon and Gnosis chain, for example. We're trying to make it more profitable for Sentinel to closing the micro streams, meaning that those streams have really, really small value and deposit, and with minimum deposit, that will make it a slightly more profitable. We're also targeting for more community engagement. So we have now a framework deployment guide updated many times, and each time we go to new network, it's always our community member deploy to the new network. We also have made the deployment of ERC20 wrapper easy. Most of the network, we just need to go to one of the Etherscan like scanner and click a few buttons, then there is a ERC20 wrapper of super token. We're gonna create more, gonna do more work on the custom super token templates for you to create your own pure super tokens. And if you need more custom features, you should also look into it, and we'll do more work on that to make your custom super token creation process more smooth and sleek. We're going to also support a token lists standard. One of the frequent asked questions: how can we know the list of super tokens there is? So we're gonna work on a bit more, making that available on the token lists. The next big thing for us is to do some formalizations. So there will be a yellow paper. So we'll be citing existing papers, right? So things like existing EIPs, things like existing research on the theory of money and payment system. And we'll keep a fairly high standard of intellectual honesty. So we'll be reusing existing terminologies, trying to generalize existing framework if possible, not just to flag just for the sake of it, right? It's not about your idea versus my idea, right? And also highlight the original, but at the same time, we also want to highlight the original idea and the contribution from Superfluid money in the process. So the yellow paper will also use a technique called embedding the specification, where it will be written in literate Haskell. Right? This is one example. They're defining something called decaying flow agreement. And the benefit of doing so is that we'll have well-defined terminologies, which basically equivalent of saying well-defined types. And we also define some of the language in a more rigor definitions, which is also equivalent to say have testable properties. And the idea of Superfluid Protocol, we actually become a Haskell program even. Right. So the whole process will make it a sound platform for research topics. So what are the research topics? So we'll be experimenting a bit more exotic agreements, things like decaying flow, general distribution, step flow, this kind of thing. We'll also explore it a bit more regarding different solvency models. Currently, our system is using so-called buffer-based solvency. You might be familiar with the concept of buffer if you have programmed on our protocol. But there are other techniques such as syncing the time as opposed to using buffer, etc. So money units models can be also a topic to be explored. We're all familiar with account token model. That's quite widely used on EVM. In fact, a de facto one. There might be also a chance for we to make a EU TXO model, right? So that's a research topic. and composability models, right? So we use extensively callbacks to implement super apps, but there are other techniques to do composability, perhaps using state syncing as opposed to synchronous callbacks, right? All those can be good research topics. So we also so the work done in the formalization will provide a very solid reference for additional superfluid money implementations. But what it can be: EVM superfluid V2, a non-EVM system, or superfluid enabled blockchain itself, right? So these are all the open questions. So additionally, we're also gonna develop a protocol validator. So it will become a simulation environment for new ideas and concepts. And with that, it can also provide a very good functional specification testing tool for new implementations, right? So you can visualize the account balances during a test case, for example. But at the same time, we also need to do some deep refactoring of our existing EVM implementation. We'll deliver the functional style agreement refactoring. So we'll split the pure code from the side effects. Side effects, we're talking about things like reading protocol parameters from governance, EVM storage operations, callbacks to super apps, this kind of thing. In doing so, it will make it also easier for formal verifications of each component, especially each agreement. And it will make ways for more feature development, right? So another thing we'll be doing is called a token-centric interface. We're phasing out the usage of callAgreement. You might be familiar with if you have done some development on Superfluid. So that means you'll be using more idiomatic token dot kind of interface, right? So for example, there'll be token dot create flow, there'll be token dot update flow, token dot delete flow. And the IDA, the instant distribution framework you might be familiar with, will become a multi-purpose index, right? So you'll be using token dot create index instead. As a subscriber to the index, you'll do like token dot subscribe to index, token dot approve index. And you might be familiar with the IDA that it does distribution instantly, right? So then it becomes token dot distribute to index. What about something called token dot update distribution flow rate of index, right? Very wordy, mouthful, but it's something called GDA I will introduce shortly. And something about decaying flow agreement, right? Token dot update decaying flow rate of index, right? So the index really become a multi-purpose instrument for publisher to influence balances of all its subscribers, providing more design surface for your Superfluid applications. So all we are doing here is trying to complete a jigsaw puzzle. So that's so-called Superfluid payment modalities matrix. What does it mean? So payment before Superfluid money, well, there's only one. That's one-to-one and instant. For example, ERC20, everyone familiar with, right? So sending from one account to the other instantly. Payment with Superfluid money, right? So we have a matrix here. So we have one-to-one and we have one-to-n from one dimension. From the other dimension, we have instant versus streaming. So one-to-one instant. We have also a name now called a transferable balance agreement. One-to-one streaming, that's basically constant flow agreement or the decaying flow agreement. One-to-n instant, that will be the IDA. So it will be GDA with instant distribution, aka IDA, we're all familiar with. And one-to-n streaming, that will be GDA with constant or decaying flow. But it's not there yet, but it will be there at some point. So so-called GDA is General Distribution Agreement. It is a multi-purpose index with instant distribution, with constant flow, with decaying flow, or something else. So beyond the core protocol was, there's also many things ongoing. One of the goal is to make the Sentinel more profitable, right? So we'll make the Sentinel more than just for sovereignty protection from hostile actors. We want to add some civilian services to the Sentinels. So for example, closing stream for you by end date, right? I mentioned that we had a feature now called the access control list. So basically you allow a third party to close a stream for you, or even update stream for you. How about the wrap up more underlying token for you when your balance is running low? Right. So these are the civilian service we can add to Sentinel in a decentralized manner. Also, we want to add more power to our subgraph implementation to the protocol. So the problem we're facing at the moment is that Superfluid distribution index is too powerful because an index can change balances of all its subscribers. A subgraph indexer unfortunately cannot scale as much as its current architecture. So we're working with the graph team to find a solution to tame it. We're also adding more features to the SDKs, right? That means the SDK-Core, the SDK Redux. So I would call for everyone to be part of it. So in order to join this journey, we have a bi-weekly protocol public forum. It's it's on Wednesday, 2:30 GMT. If you're interested, join our Discord and ask for invitations. Also check out our bounties on monorepo. There's a tag called bounty. Also can check out our bug bounty for smart contracts on Immunify. A shout out to them. And if you want to join us full time, there's also jobs available on jobs.superfluid.finance. So, well, that's it. Thank you. And the slide source code you can also find from our wiki page. So that's it. Thank you.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for kind of going through basically I think, early look in that roadmap of how we think money will change. Maybe just a couple of questions I have on sort of how you're kind of thinking about this thing, and also what the learning's been over the last 440 days. My kind of first one is like, how do you kind of decide to focus on a new chain? Like, is that just like we can just deploy the same code there, or do you think you see like a different demand coming in from those users that have different needs on different kind of destinations? Like, what kind of goes on, and what are some like observations that you've had from using different chains?
Yeah, so currently we only have an EVM implementation, right? So, and we don't necessarily decide. We'll call for deployment, and we'll wait for the community member deploy first. So it's more of a community driven at the moment for EVMs. And on non-EVM, it's more of the research side. So it's not nowhere near the deployment. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, that clarifies the other question I was going to ask, but I think one question from the audience is, yeah, if you can send us a link to the slides, we'll share that with the chat and everybody there, and then we'll also kind of explore that, put that on our Discord for anybody who's hacking and wants to see that same thing. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate you giving us a early look on next version release of Superfluid.
Thank you.